You know, I think it's time. It's time for you to learn your computer's love language. We've been interacting with an API, a REST API. We requested to get things, we requested to put things and delete things, and the API sends us stuff back, some data, and it's formatted in a special way that the computer just loves it. Stuff like this, when we send a GET request saying, hey, show me the interfaces you have, Mr. Router, and he sent us back the interfaces, but it's in this weird stuff, and this weird stuff is called JSON. Now, before we touch on what JSON is, the format and how to read it, how to write your own JSON, we need to talk about some programming. We need to talk about data. So in this nugget, we're going to do a bit of a programming 101, sort of a primer to understand how we can manage data with our APIs, variables, dictionaries, list. Those are all foreign terms to you. Keep going. If you're already familiar with that stuff, you know what? Skip on to the next nugget. But first, let me get into Python mode. Python 3. Boom. The first thing we're going to look at is a simple variable. According to this official definition, a variable is used to store information to be used later in a computer program. So if I were to have a program that would say what color dog I have, I would have it say I have a dog. And let's assume I have just a ton of dogs and all different colors. This would be an excellent place to use a variable, and I would put a variable right there. I would name that variable color. This is my variable. Because what is it? Well, it varies. It varies based on what I set it to. So if I'm talking about my dog Fifi, I might set color equal to green. I've got a green dog named Fifi. So because my variable color is equal to green, when my computer says what color dog I have, it says I have a, looks at the variable, looks at what it equals, and says, oh, we've got a green dog here. So let's create a variable. I might have the variable trainer. And I can make that variable equal to pretty much anything I want. One thing I might want to make equal to is a string, which is any kind of text. And that string would be network Chuck, because I am your trainer for this course, or this particular skill. So now anytime I call trainer, I just enter trainer, it'll say network Chuck, or I can print trainer, the print function in Python, and say trainer. Trainer will equal network Chuck, right? Now notice when I reference a string, which is just text, I have to put it between quotes. So network Chuck between quotes is a string. Without quotes, watch what happens. If I try to set trainer equal to just network Chuck, network Chuck is not defined because I'm trying to equal it to another variable. You see, text like that without quotes is considered something else, something you would define, like a variable. So when you see the quotes, it's a string. I can also set a variable equal to a number, which in programming speak, we call those integers. So I can say age is equal to 30. Now for a number, you don't need to put quotes or anything. If you put in the number, it just becomes an integer. If I want to see what type of data it is, I can do type, and then I'll just reference that variable, so age. It tells me it's an integer. Clear some things up here. All right. Now if we're to make age equal to quotes 30, what type of data do you think that is now? Well, let's see. Type for age, str. That stands for string. So anything I put between quotes suddenly magically becomes a string. To think about networks, I could set router name equal to, I didn't finish it. The name of my router could be router 1. So now whenever I'm talking about a router in my script, I just say router name, and it's router 1. Now I still have trainer equal to network Chuck. What's cool is I can make a variable equal another variable. So for example, I could say YouTuber equals the variable trainer. Notice no quotes. This is a variable. So now when I call a YouTuber, if I spell it right, network Chuck. So it's kind of nested in there. So that's a simple variable. Now there are a couple more trainers here at CBT, more than a couple. So to represent those guys in programming with data, we're going to look at another Python idea, something called list, which is a type of Python collection. When I say collection, I mean like a collection of data. And a list is a specific type. Let me show you. So the best way to learn about a list is just to create one. So let's create a list. Instead of trainer, I'm going to say trainers. I'm going to have it equal. This is how you create a list. You put it between brackets. So I'll say network Chuck. Finish that string, then I'll put a comma. I'll say Jeremy Chiara, Keith Barker. And I'll finish off there. That's all the trainers you'll see on the CCNA. I'll close it with a closing bracket. And that's my list. So now when I call trainers, I get a list of trainers. Now lists are pretty great because they can contain a bunch of different types of data. So I could say things I love equals, I'll make it a list. I could say the number 7, so that's an integer. I could say computers as a string, networking as a string. I can even say, I can say I love all the trainers at CBT Nuggets. I can put in my list another list, Inception. And then I can even add another variable. I can say trainer, which is me. I love myself. You gotta love yourself. And that's my list. So now if I call that list, things I love, that's a lot of things I love. So where would you see that being used in networking? Well, you might have a list of devices you want to connect to. My devices equals switch 1, switch 2, switch 3. And you got all your devices. Wait, I didn't spell that right. There we go. And I know I spelled switch 3 wrong. Relax. Now, what if we want to know a bit more about Jeremy Charra? What if we want to store information about him in one variable? Not just his name, but maybe how old he is. How old is Jeremy Charra? How many kids he has, his favorite flavor of ice cream, his favorite Cisco command. What if we want to store all that in one variable? We can do that in a dictionary. Now, I'm saying Python dictionary because we're specifically using Python, but this is stuff that goes amongst various programming languages. They might be named differently, but the principles are still pretty much the same. So whereas a list was an ordered amount of information, a dictionary is unordered. It's also changeable like a list, but it's indexed. Now, most dictionaries, what do you use them for? You first look up a term to get what? The definition. For example, if you're looking up the new slang that's been added to Webster's dictionary, vacay, a shortening of vacation. Sesh, a shortening of session. Fabulosity, fabulous, quality, state, or nature. A fatberg, a large mass of fat and solid waste that collects in a sewer system. Gross. So in the language world dictionary, you got your term. Oh gosh, that's huge. Let me make that smaller. Better. You've got your term and your definition. A dictionary in the programming world would be the key and then the value. Same principle though, when we want to learn what vacay means, we'll get the value. So I'm going to put together my Jeremy Charra biography. I'm going to have a variable called Jeremy Charra. Now we define dictionaries by using curly braces. And I'll put in my first key value pair. So I'll say Jeremy Charra's name, that's the key. I'll put a colon, and then on the other side of that colon, going to be the value. His name will also be a string, and I'll put it proper. Capital Jeremy, space Charra. Then comma separated, I'll add another key value pair like age, which I'm not sure how old he is, but I'm going to say he's 64. Right, Jeremy? Another key value pair. Favorite Cisco command, which, if you've watched his training, which I'm assuming you have, is show IP interface brief. That's pretty much all you got to know, right? And that's my dictionary. Now, if I were to call that dictionary, it would look like this, Jeremy Charra. Gives me everything. But what's cool about this is it's structured data. It's indexed. Meaning if I just wanted to know Jeremy Charra's age, I could say Jeremy Charra, which is calling my variable. But then with brackets, I can specify the key. I want to know his age. Yeah, there we go. So I'm calling just the age key, and I should get the value for that key. There it is. It's pretty cool, right? So if I want to know his favorite Cisco command, I call up that dictionary, which is the variable I set, and I say favorite Cisco command. Oh, it's case sensitive. There we go. Show IP interface brief. Now if we translate that to the network automation world and we're working with routers, and for that I'm going to look at Postman and look at our example in the last nugget. I used an API request to get a list of interfaces from my router, and here's what it kicked back in the JSON. Now notice in JSON, what do you think this little tidbit right here is? Well, it's between curly braces, and it looks to have a bunch of key value pairs. Must be, smells like a dictionary. This dictionary right here references everything we need to know about this particular interface, Gigabit 1. And that's what the router kicked back to us. How cool is that? I can even create a dictionary off this information, so I'm going to copy this. Go back to my Python shell here, and I'll say my interface equals, and I'll paste that in and enter. I got me a dictionary. If I call my interface, there it is, all the information. If I just want to see the IP address of my interface, well, I'll call my dictionary, which is what I set this variable to, my interface. Then I'll use my brackets to say I only want to see the key IP address. And it gives me just the IP address. Pretty powerful. I love it. I'm going to call one more key value pair here. I want to look at, let's say IPv6 enable. That's the key. It's going to give me the value, and it's false. Notice that value is not in parentheses, so it's not a string. That's Boolean. Boolean basically is it true or is it false? So is it IPv6 enabled? Nah, because it's false. If it were, it'd be, what do you think? True, right? Now, one last thing I want to show you. We talked about lists. We talked about dictionaries. I want to show you real quick how we can combine all of those things. So I'm going to create a biography for myself and for Keith Barker. Let's do it. First, Keith Barker doesn't have just one favorite Cisco command. He has multiple. So I want to make a list of his favorite Cisco commands. So I'll put KB Cisco, and I'll have the equal a list with my bracket here. I'll say show IP interface brief. Also show run. He loves show run. I'm sure he loves show run, but I doubt it's really what it is. He loves show run. Let's say pipe include router, so you can see all his routing information. And he loves to look at all his interfaces. So show interfaces and all the descriptions and all the details. Yes. So in that list, I've got my list set. So now let's create Keith Barker's dictionary, his biography here. Keith Barker equals. We'll start our dictionary with our curly braces. The first key value pair will be name, and then the value, Keith Barker. His age doesn't look a day over 32. Favorite Cisco commands. And this time my value is not going to be a string, it's not going to be a number, it's going to be my list, which is another variable. So I'll reference KB Cisco. And then that's the end of my dictionary. I'm going to close that out and be done. So now if I call that dictionary, Keith Barker, a lot of stuff in there. If I look at just his favorite interfaces, Keith Barker, and I'll say I want to look at the key favorite Cisco commands. It'll give me his favorite Cisco commands, a list. So I'm nesting stuff in there. I'm going to create my biography real quick. Network Chuck equals name Chuck Keith, age 30, favorite Cisco command, show CDP neighbors. Close out my dictionary here. Now with my 3 biographies set, I'm going to create a new list. I'm going to redo my list of trainers. So I'll say trainers, a variable, is equal to a list, and the list is going to reference the dictionary Jeremy Chara, the dictionary Keith Barker, and the dictionary Network Chuck. Those dictionaries are now nested within that list. So now if I look at trainers, woo, look at all that information, man. So in this nugget, we explored a little bit of programming and how we handle data. We looked at a simple variable. We can have it equal some text, a string between quotes. We can have it equal a number. And then we moved past that and looked at a list, which is just a collection of data. A list is ordered, it's changeable, and we can have it equal, a bunch of strings or a bunch of integers, numbers. And then we looked at creating a dictionary, which is an unordered list, and it's all about the key value pairs. So we created a biography for Jeremy Chara where we could reference his name, which is Jeremy Chara. We could reference his age, which is 94. And we could reference his favorite Cisco command, show IP interface brief. And we can nest all those within, it's crazy, right? It's fun. And that will be heavily used when you're using Python and when you're using network automation. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.